any eating this week. All right. We are glad to have each of you in our Bible study. We're going to, we'll start in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 30, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. So just to make sure we're all on everyone knows the Rowden service is going to be Tuesday of this week here at the church building. There's a visitation from 9 to 11, and the service begins at 11. And we will be having a meal afterward. And so if anyone could assist with that, that would very much be appreciated. And Mitzi is spearheading that, Mitzi and I. And so Kaisers are out of town, so we'll, usually Laura spearheads that, but Mitzi's basically taking Laura's template, and we're going to try to make it happen. So we'll see how that goes. And thank you again to everyone who participated with the Thanksgiving baskets. We saw a lot of smiles yesterday on the faces of the folks receiving the food baskets, and it was a wonderful thing. All right, Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. Over the last few Sundays, we've been looking at various teachings of Jesus, and based upon different accounts, interactions that he had. And so we'll start in Mark 4, 35 through 41. We may have a little extra time to do another one of these, but we'll just get started with this one and see how we do. On the same day, when evening had come, Jesus said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side." Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow, and they awoke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Then Jesus arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, "Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" How many of you like to be out on the water in a boat of some sort? Okay. I'm just going to tell you, and it's not going to make sense, but I've been on a few cruises in my life. Y'all know the story about the Disney cruise, right? Several years ago, my mom and dad for Christmas decided, they asked, "Do y'all want to go on a Disney cruise?" My mom said, "Your dad and I are going to pay." I'm like, yes. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? And so, Mitzi and I and our kids, Brandy and Thomas and their kids, Ryan and his wife and their kids, my mom and dad, we all went on this Disney cruise, had a blast. About 2 years later, my mom calls again and says, "Y'all want to go on that Disney cruise?" And we're like, "Yeah." She goes, "All right, well, this is how much you owe, and this is when the payment is due." I'm going to tell you, the first Disney cruise was a whole lot more enjoyable than the second one. We're probably still trying to recover from that. But when I'm out on a cruise in the middle of the, whether it's the Atlantic or, whatever, in the Gulf, I'm as relaxed as I can be. It's it's just a fun, relaxing time. Now, but when I'm in a fishing boat, though, I'm going to tell you, I can feel the anxiety. In Hot Springs, my dad's got this little boat, and the kids like to go tubing. And I'm the type that always makes sure that we have enough life jackets in the boat. That's the kind of, and I'm the one that's always saying, put your life jacket on. I don't want anybody in a fishing boat without a life jacket. A few weeks ago, maybe a couple months, over the summer, I'm sure it was, we were in Winfield with the Consonaires, and little Danny Consonaire has a fishing boat, and Braden loves to go fishing. And I'm looking at this weather forecast, and I'm saying, Danny, there's a storm coming through. He goes, oh, it's not coming our way. He goes, all right, I said, all right. So we went out there, and it was kind of in the evening time. The sun started going down, but it's one of those summer days in which you look on this side, to the right side of the boat, and you see blue skies. But you look out on the left side of the boat and you see black skies. I mean, that's how much of a contrast. And I said, Danny, what are we doing? And he said, look at that blue skies right there. I said, yeah, but look at that black sky right over there. And he goes, all right, well, we'll go on in. And so we did, and I might be exaggerating a little bit, not too much, but I was more of a rush to get back in than he was. I think he would have stayed out there longer to fish. But I don't know, again, what it is. You would think that on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic might be a little bit more anxiety provoking than right there in a pond where you can see the shore, at any given moment. But nonetheless, they're on this boat, and the storm comes through, and Jesus says, "Peace, be still." And he says to them in verse 40, "Why are you so fearful?" Let me ask this question as we get started this morning. What is fear, and where does it come from? That's a very general question. I'm not just limited it to when you're on a fishing boat, but what is fear, and where does it come from? Oh, okay. That's great. Okay, so fear of falling, and fear of loud noise, and all other fears are learned. Okay, that's interesting. Chris. Yeah. And messing something up, not knowing how things are going to not knowing how things are going to turn out. Okay. All right. Somebody else. What is fear? Where does it come from? Sister Gwen. Okay. You don't know what's happening. You're anticipated, so there may be some feelings of excitement, but there may be some feelings of nervousness. But not knowing how things are going to turn out. You don't have to answer this question directly, but how many of you have control issues? I think that some people, some of us, okay, we feel better when we're in control. And if someone or something is beyond our control, that may heighten these feelings of fear and or anxiety. Now, I think if I was on the boat, go ahead, Waylon.
I also think that, wasn't it four of them, the two brothers and John and Simon Peter, they were already fishing.
Yeah, right.
So the other eight were not the fishermen, or it wasn't necessarily in their family tradition to be that. So of the four of the eight, they were experienced in that, and then the Sea of Galilee isn't too deep, but it's more kind of like a faucet drain. So when a storm does come, it can get kind of violent real quick.
Right.
But I think the four were kind of used to it, and the other eight probably were not. So this was something new to them.
They may not have, and that's a great point, that sometimes we have fears based upon things that we're not accustomed to, new things that we haven't had much experience with.
And so with the other eight, they have no experience in this. And most of our fears in life come from witnessing something, with our family or with our loved ones, or with, just but as an experience we witness for ourselves. Well, and I think when Jesus goes into why are you so fearful, there's earlier on in Mark, he's healed a man with the withered hand, and lots of parables. I think there's another healing that's already taken place. So they're probably not to the realization yet fully of who he is, although they've seen miracles and seen things happen. They're not quite to the growth stage yet, I guess. They're witnessing.
And that's a great observation. Where they're at in their faith, it's still a work in progress. It's, pardon the pun on water here, it's still a shallow faith. It's not a very deep faith. And yes, they've seen Jesus do some things already in regards to serving others, in regards to performing some miracles. But it's still a work in progress. I think I would have been nervous on that boat on that day. I'm just telling you, and yeah, right. There's probably. I'm sure they wouldn't have any type of life jacket or life protection there. But notice the contrast, and we're going to try to look at this from a couple different angles here. Notice it's the same storm, right? But notice the contrast between Jesus and his demeanor and the disciples and their demeanor. Whereas the disciples were completely filled with fear, Jesus was completely filled with contentment and stillness and peace. Jesus was tired. I mean, they had been active in ministry, and they had been doing all kinds of different things as far as teachings and healings and dealing with opposition, and so Jesus, being human as he was, he's Son of God but also Son of Man, he was tired. And hey, that's one thing Jesus and I have in common. We like to bring our pillow places. When you go on a trip, do you bring your own pillow? I mean, he even, the text says, he had his own pillow, and he was just resting away. I know some people tend to. Thankfully, the last couple of years, have we had a hurricane since Hurricane Ida 2 years ago? I mean, knock on wood, right? And it's I know there's been times over the years, I'm sure we've evacuated for hurricanes. Other times we've stayed. Okay, I will tell you my approach on hurricanes, that when they do, for the ones we've stayed for, we didn't stay for Ida. But on these smaller ones, if it's I always prefer that when it's at night My goal is to fall asleep and just sleep through the night. I mean, it's that's my approach. If we're going to stay, we might as well just But there are times though when that storm comes and you can't sleep, and you may be up all night, and it's loud and it's windy. And I remember there was, this has been a few years ago now, we had stayed for a hurricane. It was passing through the day. And I think the eye of that storm passed over our house. I know that might sound crazy. It was it was maybe a category 1, and it was fast moving. But I just remember all the wind and rain but there was at one point where it was just, it was still. And I really think the eye passed over. And so we all have experienced, being in South Louisiana, we've experienced different types of storms. But Jesus, he stayed calm. How do you stay calm during a storm? And I'm not just talking about a hurricane, but life storms. How do you stay calm during a life storm? Yes. Yes.
A lack of faith in themselves, being able to weather the storm themselves and their own ability, but also the lack of faith that Jesus was there with them. And that he's always there with us now.
Okay, so understanding the presence of God, understanding the presence of Christ.
And that even if things don't go your way, you should be fearful of it.
Okay.
Because we don't always get our way because God has a plan. There could be something better that we don't know about.
Yeah, it's easy to stay calm when life is good, right? When the sun is out, when the sky is blue, man, that's calm and that's relaxing. But finding a way to stay calm during the storm. All right, go ahead, Waylon.
And elaborate a little more on what Chris said, I think that's why, Jesus is so confident and just able to kick back and lay on pillows because he knows where he came from, and if that's how it's all supposed to end, then that's what the Father has planned. And so he's like, well, why are you so faithful? But they're just coming and learning about their faith, and so he's like, here I am, where's your faith coming from? But that's the thing is God has already arranged how everything's going to work out. And although we get caught up in our humanly emotions, when we get fearful, we need to realize too that God has it all planned out. And we need to rely on him rather than get caught up in our emotions.
That's you're absolutely right. God is in control, right? He's got it figured out. He knows how the storm's going to end. He knows how the book is going to end. He knows how the whatever he knows Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He knows, and so he is calm. He's in control. Jesus knew that the Father in heaven was in complete control. And when we understand that our God has all things under control, that will hopefully create a little bit of calmness, maybe a whole lot of calmness and contentment in our lives. Dave Miller, a gospel preacher, he has this to say about this passage. He said, Jesus turned to his disciples and asked them two questions. He first asked, why were they so frightened? Jesus fully recognized the potential destruction which such a storm could inflict in the form of loss of life and property. Yet he expected his disciples to temper and control their fear of this world's dangers with an initiated awareness of and confidence in the greater spiritual realities of life. We too are in the unique position to face the threatening facets of this life with the serenity and sureness of soul that baffles the unbeliever. Those in the world are caught up in widespread fear of automobile accidents, terrorist bombings, airline crashes, crime and violence, cancer, and other dreaded diseases. But the Christian's propensity for fear subsides in view of the presence of the King of Kings in our lives. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He is present in our lives. In theory, the disciples should have had no fear on that day, even though the storm was real, because Jesus was with them. The presence of Christ in our lives. It makes me think of Matthew 28, 18 through 20, the Great Commission of going into all the world, right? We go and we preach and teach. Folks are being baptized. And it says at the end of that Jesus, he says, I am with you always. We sing a song, I don't know what number it is, but it's called Anywhere with Jesus. Anywhere with Jesus, I can safely go. And so no matter if that's a place or no matter if it's a point in our lives, we can go with Jesus. I have found that as I have, in theory, have grown and matured in my faith, I feel like things, even though I just shared with you the fishing boat, I do feel as if I have grown in my faith over the years. But one of the things that is, now that I have kids that are teenagers, I mean, does a kid have any fear? I mean, do teenagers have any fear? And it's one thing to feel as if you've got your own life under control, but what about the people in your life that you have responsibility over as parents that have children that are still, of younger age, that, there's a certain amount of fear and anxiety based upon how it is they're going to live their life. So let me ask this question, and we might need to rely upon the parents that have already been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. How do you manage your own fears and anxiety based upon not so much what you will do, because you've got yourself under control, but how do you manage fear and anxiety in regards to parenting your children that who knows what they're going to do? How do you manage that? Lots of prayers. It's funny you say that, Steve. I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not exaggerating. I realized that ever since my kids have become teenagers, I have prayed more in my life than I have ever prayed before. I'm just being real with you. That's just a fact. So prayers, okay? All right. Somebody else. So how is it that we can keep calm, keep the faith in regards to being parents to young children? Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It is, where the more and more faith you have, the less and less fear you're going to have. And the opposite, the more and more fear you have, the less and less faith. Those are, using math language, Patsu, that's a negative correlation, if I'm saying that right. The more and more faith, the less and less fear. The more and more fear, the less and less faith. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. So that's a great way of looking at it. So once you get through something and you come out of it with faith, I like how you said that that fear wasn't worthy, right? I mean, you end up allowing whatever it is to build your faith, to make that faith stronger, and fear can be very exhausting, right? I mean, that can just wear you down, and it's can be very overwhelming. It can just slow you down or make you stop altogether. I mean, that's how tough that is. But yes, ultimately, as men and women of God, as we are followers of Christ, we understand that He is in control, and that no matter what the situation, no matter what the storm is, that He is in control. I love verse 41, and there's been singing groups that have sung. Cornerstone and other a cappella groups have songs based out of this voice. I want to, who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him? Okay, and the song goes something to the effect of, I want to be like that. I want to be like that sea. I want to be like that wind that obeyed Jesus. That Jesus is King of Kings. He's Lord of Lords. He's got power over the storm. And as soon as He made the command, that wind and that sea, they obeyed Him immediately. Jesus said what to do, and that wind and that sea obeyed Him without any delay, without any, wait though, or what about, or this. It was an immediate obedience to the command of Christ. I think one of the best ways to manage our fears as we're trying to keep the faith, and this might sound overly simplistic, but one of the best ways to keep our faith and not be overcome with fears is to obey the commands of Christ. No matter, whatever it is that's weighing us down, or whatever that fear or anxiety is, that's not a license to just start disobeying God. Rather, that is the right time. That is the best. I mean, it's always the right time, and there's never a wrong time to obey Christ. But you think about things that are just weighing down on you. Obeying the commands of Christ, doing what He says to do. Is obedience to Christ easier or harder when the storm has come? It's hard. Yeah. It's easy when it's easy to obey the commands when life is good. But the commands of Christ are designed to help us, not to hurt us. And so whatever that command is, no matter what that teaching is, whether we understand it, whether we agree with it, whether we disagree with it, whether we wish it was in the Bible, whether we wish it wasn't, whatever that command is, we've just got to obey His voice and to do what He says. He says in John 14, verse 15, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. How many of you want peace in your life? That's what Jesus says. Peace, be still. All right, so as we're winding down, got a couple minutes left. I asked you as we began, what is fear and where does it come from? Let's finish on the opposite side. What is peace And where does that come from? What is peace and where does that come from? Peace comes knowing that we're trusting and obeying. Trust and obey, as the song says, for there's no other way, right? Peace comes, all right? Go ahead, Waylon.
I think also after you obey and you see the result, your faith grows even more.
Yes.
And so it is hard to trust in certain situations where we're new to that, or where we haven't put as much faith forward, or we're just, really anxiety, scared, or fearful. But I do see through my life when I have put faith in God and it did work out, how much more so do I remind myself that, hey, I might be new to this, but I need to put my faith back where it needs to begin.
That's,
From there, everything seems to get better.
that's right. And we all realize that hindsight is 20/20, right? We can look back with perfect vision to see what happened and how it resulted. But yes, and that is the big challenge. We have peace knowing what God has done for us in the past, knowing that he keeps his promises, that he'll be with us in the present and in the future. And I'm going to try to, for a moment, connect the Lord's Supper. We take the Lord's Supper every first day of the week, right? When Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me. We always want to remember what God has done for us in the past so that we can find strength and faith and courage to go through those storms that are happening in the present. We serve a great God. We have a great Savior that is with us. He's able to calm the sea and the wind, and he's able to provide for us peace in the midst of storms. What a great blessing that is to have Christ in our lives, and I pray that we can have more and more faith every single day and to live for him no matter what is going on. Thank you for being with us today, and keep the Rowden family in your prayers, and more family members are on their way as this week, obviously, but we hope to see you Wednesday night, but maybe even on Tuesday to support the family. All right, we'll see you. We'll see you soon.